There we go. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Public Works for today, Friday, March 4th, 2016.
Commissioner Davis, James, Repenning, and Jacinto are present. President James, we have a quorum. May we start with Bureau introductions, please, starting with Bureau of Engineering.
Good morning. Patricia Chang, Bureau of Engineering.
Good morning, Russ Drizella, Bureau of Contract Administration.
Good morning, Ruben Flamenco, Bureau of Street Lighting.
Good morning, Mark Simon, Bureau of Street Services.
April Mancha, Bureau of Sanitation.
Good morning, Ted Jordan, Public Works General Counsel.
Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. President James, we received speaker cards under general public comment, and we also received speaker cards on all the items for today's agenda.
Okay, then our first item of business, the approval of the meeting minutes from the meeting of Wednesday, February 17th, 2016. Is there a second to my motion that we approve those meeting minutes? By Commissioner Jacinto. Any objection? Without objection, those meeting minutes will be approved. Agenda item number 1, Bureau of Engineering for Council District 11, recommending that the board authorize the city engineer to issue a task for solicitation number 13-038 with a budget authority of $190,322, which includes contingency, to Nino and Moore to provide a preliminary geotechnical evaluation of Villa de las Olas. Mr. Spindler, you have a card on number 1.
He's right. Little Boozy, man, is right. We're going to pay $190,000 for this? I don't understand it. It's the same thing, man. This is all the same thing, man. Just like the police, everything, it's a bunch of bullshit. You're going to provide a preliminary geotechnical evaluation. What the hell is Villa de las Olas? The way of the waves? So what is it? We're speaking Spanish now? $200,000, a contingency. This is what we do in the city. They're out there today, all over the media. They found the murder weapon for OJ's killer 20 years later. And you're worried about this fucking thing, $190,322 for some corrupt crap? You guys should be shutting this meeting down. You should be leaving the city right now, knowing what happened today. And screw this item, vote no on this item because it's the same garbage. Same garbage. It's nothing but corruption. You don't need a geotechnical nothing. What you need to do is, your department has all these people on the payroll. Find out what the fuck you need from them. Stop giving these out
2 minutes.
to these campaign donors.
Thank you, Mr. Spindler. Agenda item number 1, Craig Kunish. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. My name is Craig Kunish, and I work for the Bureau of Engineering's Geotechnical Engineering Group. The Villa de las Olas is a city street located approximately a half mile southwest of Temescal Canyon Road and the Pacific Coast Highway in the Pacific Palisades. The street is situated on a bluff that overlooks the Pacific Coast Highway and is located above and along a headscarp of the Villa de las Olas landslide. In the 1950s, the landslide developed between Villa de las Olas and the Pacific Coast Highway and moved across and blocked the Pacific Coast Highway. The highway was subsequently realigned around the toe of the landslide and closer to the ocean. During this period, approximately 300 feet of the western end of the street was closed to public use due to the landslide. The portion of the street has been closed to vehicle traffic ever since and functions at the moment as a paved drainage swale to convey surface runoff along the street's original alignment. During the 1960s and 70s, the Occidental Petroleum Company owned the landslide area and did some extensive geotechnical studies directed towards stabilizing the area so that they could drill for oil. The work included an installation of approximately 32 sub-horizontal drains, or what's commonly called in the industry as a hydrogger, and which extended into the landslide and beneath the street in order to relieve the buildup of groundwater pressure. Over time, these hydroggers have become overgrown with vegetation, and their current state of effectiveness is unknown. The hydroggers discharge the water into a drain located at the base of the landslide near the Pacific Coast Highway. As mentioned earlier, about 300 feet at the western end of Via de las Olas is closed to vehicle traffic. The purpose of the study is to locate, clean out, and evaluate the condition of the existing hydroggers. Also, to perform a subsurface investigation of the area by drilling, logging, and obtaining samples from 4 small diameter and 3 large diameter borings. The work will also include the installation of 4 slope inclinometers into the 4 small diameter borings, which will detect any movement of the slope and roadway. And also, the consultant will prepare a geotechnical report which will summarize the findings of the subsurface exploration, provide conceptual recommendations for the repair of the street, and to provide preliminary cost estimates for the repair of the street. After careful review of 4 proposals received from the Geotechnical Engineering Group's on-call consultant list, Nino and Moore was selected as the most qualified candidate to perform the preliminary geotechnical evaluation of Via de las Olas. The total budget authority, as mentioned earlier, is $190,322, which includes an approximate contingency of $31,720. In addition, the consultant has pledged a minority-owned business enterprise participation level of 18% and a woman-owned business enterprise participation level of 2%. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Kunish. Commissioner Jacinto and then Commissioner Davis.
Thank you, President James. Greg, thank you for the report. You know, in the briefing, I understood and valued the learning and understanding what a hydrogger is. So we're learning stuff all the time in terms of that technical apparatus. In the board report, it says 5 firms, sir. Was there 5 or 4?
I have 4 proposals that I
Proposals were
reviewed.
received from 5 firms. Let's understand what the. Just want to make sure for the record.
Should be 4. At least that's what my group reviewed. Were 4 proposals. One being from Nino and Moore.
Well, for the record, I want to make sure that we are correct in terms of the board
Okay,
report.
I can get back with you on that later on.
Second,
to
Craig.
confirm that.
Okay, thank you. Say we don't. I want to understand for the record the justification for the project. Say we did not do this geotechnical survey. And therefore, none of the downstream work that would come from this survey. Could you paint a scenario really quick about?
Well, currently if you do nothing, the street's going to remain in its current condition, which the 300 feet of the closed portion of the street is going to remain more or less as a drainage ditch. It won't be open for vehicle traffic. Also, there's some ongoing movement with the landslide that is slowly encroaching into a parking area located like a scenic overlook located adjacent to the street, and over time that will proceed to get worse and may eventually creep into the street, taking out the drainage along this portion of Via de las Olas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacinto. Commissioner Davis.
So basically, the geotechnical evaluation will assess for us specifically what we're dealing with in this particular area of land.
That's correct.
So that we'll know specifically what the elements are, and we can have a recommendation to appropriately correct or sustain that hill in some way based upon what the geotech tells us. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In terms of the minority, women business inclusion, This is a federally or locally funded project?
It's being funded by Measure R funds.
That's a city
I believe so.
proposition.
It's
And
county.
Is it county?
Is it county?
Measure R's county money.
Okay. And so does this one, is it under the jurisdiction of the mayor's executive order for mandatory subcontractor minimum policy?
That I'm not aware of, and if you'd like, I can get back with you on that question.
Okay, so basically we have 20% though of women and minority business inclusion, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Further questions? Commissioner Jacinto's made a motion that we adopt agenda item number 1. Any objection? Is there a second? I'll second it along with Commissioner Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we can adopt agenda item number 1. Thank you, Mr. Kunish.
You're very welcome.
Let's go ahead and do general public comment. I neglected to do that at the beginning. Mr. Spindler, you have a card on general public comment?
President James, also on item number 1 for clarification, would you like that item to be considered forthwith?
Oh, yes. And do we need to do anything regarding amending the board report to reflect the 4 firms that responded versus the 5 firms as was elicited in Commissioner Jacinto's questioning?
Yeah, I see no need to revise the recommendation that the board approved, simply because the recommendation stands to approve the task order as stated. So.
The board, the oral record is accurate, but we need to, do we need to have an amended board report, basically, or do we have an amended motion that, an emotion that amends it? Or are we okay, Ted?
I agree with Fernando. I think the recommendation is fine. I think the clarification in the oral record is
Sufficient?
Is appreciated and sufficient.
Great, okay. Then any problem sending it forthwith? We'll send number 1 forthwith. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Spindler on public comment. Thank you, sir.
Alleged knife that may have been recovered, possibly in connection to O.J. Simpson case. So this is what we know. Within the last month, LAPD became aware of an item that was allegedly recovered by a citizen at the Rockingham property, possibly during the demolition of the site. We need to vet that. We still don't know if that's an accurate account of how this item came into our possession. The actual item is described as a knife. I'm not going to go into the description of the knife because that could be germane to determining whether or not this actual piece of evidence is in fact evidence or it's just a facsimile or made up story. So we need to look into that. A robbery homicide is going to look into that. So what I can tell you is that the story as it's told to us by the person we received it from, and the person that we received this knife from is a retired LAPD officer who retired back in the late 90s. He was a motor officer, and at the time, according to him, he was working an off-duty, which is, he was working a moving job, which a lot of our officers do on an off-duty basis, as well as our retired officers. So I do not know whether he was retired at the time that he allegedly received this item from the person who claimed they found it on the property, or whether he was still, in fact, an LAPD officer and then retired sometime after that. So we are looking into that. The bottom line is that with all cases that remain open, such as the O.J. Simpson and other murder cases and robbery cases, unless there's an actual arrest or conviction to prove that we have actually closed the cases remain open. That is where we are with the O.J. Simpson case. And I shouldn't say the O.J. Simpson case.
Thank you, Mr.
Fuck the
Spindler.
police and fuck this city.
Thank you, Mr. Spindler. Moving to agenda item number 2. Bureau of Engineering for Council District 5. Recommending the board, 1, approve the request for a variance from the height limitation requirements of the above ground facilities ordinance, and 2, approve the request for a hardship waiver from the below grade requirement of the AGF ordinance requirements, and 3, authorize AT&T Mobility to install a 30-foot high steel monopole in the public right-of-way adjacent to 10295 West Wilshire Boulevard. Mr. Spindler, you have a card on number 2.
City on fire. We got such talented people here on this panel. You could be out there like I am. Was arrested November the 10th, 2015 at that police commission when I was calling weeks before that for whistleblowers to come forward in the LAPD. Now they have. You could be with me, but you're back over there doing what? Giving AT&T Mobility the right to install an ugly fucking steel monopole in a public right-of-way in front of a nice building in a nice part of town in CD5. That's what you went to law school for? That's what you went to college for? That's what you get up every morning for? To give something like this to something the community doesn't ever want. They don't want steel poles. They want these things hidden from sight. They want alternative sites where you don't see these things or have them irradiating you while you're out having lunch, talking to friends, going to work. We don't want monopole steel poles in the public right away. We'd have enough of these goddamn antennas. You know that. You know that. Whenever the public comes here, they tell you that. You still don't get it. Right over there in LAPD headquarters, they don't get it. They keep lying. That's what you got a law degree for? Not me. Not the rest of us. We're not going to stand around for this crap. Nobody wants this. That's why Mr. Matt Zabel used to do these hearings on these things. Black people being irradiated by these poles. Now white people. Fuck AT&T Mobility. They don't need a pole. They can find another place to put this thing. If you enforce the law and make them do their job, they'll find a place to do this. We don't need this shit.
Thank you, Mr. Spindler. Mr. Ledoux. You can set us up with a bit of the background and let us know the notices and whether or not there was any opposition as a result of the notification field that went out.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Ledoux. I work for Bureau of Engineering Central District. This AT&T Mobility proposed cell site, which consists of a 30-foot monopole with antenna array and 1-meter cabinet. It's basically next to public facility. It's a DWP facility. If you look at the board report, you'll notice that there's a lot of parking lots and stuff like that in an area. Right. Normally, we do not get any complaints or appeals for something that's in front of a city facility of some kind. So I've heard absolutely nothing against or for this particular application. It's in CD5, Paul Koretz. I notified them of this and asked them for their position, and basically they're remaining neutral, which normally indicates they've not heard anything on this proposal either.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Ledoux before we go to Mr. Searcy, who has a speaker card in? Commissioner Cinto?
No, I should.
Oh, okay. Mr. Searcy? Let me just call you properly. Rob Searcy has a speaker card. Prescott Communications.
Yes, Mr. President and
ahead,
board members. Thank you for calling me today and allowing me to speak. Very quickly.
Would you speak a little closer to the microphone for us? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity to present our project before you here today. Just to give you some additional background on this project. This project was selected to fill a significant gap in coverage we have along Wilshire Boulevard. In this area, we have not only the DWP building, which we're locating in front of, we also have quite a few apartment buildings that are in the area and condominium buildings. So for coverage and capacity, this is a very important site to continue to serve our constituents. Just to let you know as a background, we also went through the design review committee of the Wilshire Design Review Board, received an approval there and incorporated some of their design criteria and considerations into our design. At the end of the day, I think this is the least intrusive method we have for closing the gap in coverage. We're using a DAS node to cover this, which is very discrete and diminutive type design. The antennas are flush mounted and the cabinet is placed in a location away from the right of way, so I think it really diminishes some of the visibility concerns that one might have on this. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation. I'll answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Jacinto.
Thank you, President James. Rob, this is a gap in coverage installation, correct?
A gap
to
in
provide where
coverage.
there was no service before, or to increase the level of service, sir?
There is a gap in coverage where we basically have a hole in the service. This would also provide some additional capacity in the area since it's a high demand area, not only for the mobility traffic coming through the area, but for the stationary traffic in the condominium buildings, the high-rise buildings along Wilshire.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? I don't have any further questions. Commissioner Jacinto's made a motion that we adopt agenda item number 2, seconded by Commissioner Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 2. Any problem sending number 2 forthwith? We'll send number 2 forthwith. Thank you, Mr. Searcy. Thank you, Mr. Ledoux. Agenda item number 3, Bureau of Engineering, continued from February 26, 2016, at the request of the City Attorney's Office, recommending the board authorize city engineer to acquire a 10-foot wide permanent street easement for parcel 22A on right-of-way number 33714, commonly known as 11000 Burbank Boulevard, North Hollywood, California, in connection with the Burbank Boulevard, Lankershim Boulevard to Cleon Avenue project. Authorize the Director of the Office of Accounting to draw a demand in the amount of $84,000 payable to Anawalt Investment Company, LLC, to cover the cost of acquiring the permanent street easement. Mr. Jordan, is this okay with the City Attorney's Office for this item to move forward now?
Yes, we see no reason to hold the item at this point, and you may go forward.
I'm sorry?
Yes, you may go forward.
Okay. We have Mr. Spinner with a speaker card on number 3.
Yeah, somebody was about to get up and speak, but that's not going to be allowed. No need to speak. It's approved. So the only thing that Anawalt Investment Company needs to know and to make sure is when the city starts going over his road and breaking the crap out of it like they do our alleys, to be sure that there are cost associations involved where when you start cracking his street, that you pay for the damage when you start putting all of your heavy rigs and equipment through there. Because that's what you do. You take all these heavy trucks and all this heavy equipment and you just smash over, especially alleys. And then when we want to have it fixed, you tell us there are no state funds because federal law does not give matching funds to repair alleyways because it's not appropriated under federal highway standards. So sure, he gets $84,000 to Anawalt, but what's going to happen when you start pounding his 10-foot wide street road and start destroying the concrete and everything underneath it with all your heavy equipment that you drag across there? He has to have assurances. He needs a bond from the city. So $84,000, it's not a demand. You give him a check in the amount of 80. What is this? Draw a demand. What the fuck is this? Are we in Yorkshire, England? Are we having tea with the Queen, high tea at 3 o'clock? Are we drawing a demand from the Chancellor of the Exchequer? We're going to draw a demand in the amount of 84,000 pounds. What the fuck is this? You issue a check. You don't draw a demand. What kind of language is that? Is the city attorney, Mike Feuer, so afraid of people that he can't use normal English to understand that
2 minutes.
You're giving him a check in the
Thank
amount?
you,
You're not
Mr.
drawing
Spindler.
a demand. Pay the guy.
Thank you, Mr. Spindler. Oki Njoko?
Good morning, President.
Yes.
Good morning, Board.
This is, just to confirm, we had a couple of these items back on February 26th.
Absolutely.
There were a number of properties where the city is purchasing property permanently.
Permanent street easement.
Yes. Is this the final of the properties to be approved?
I'm sorry, no. We still have at least 8 more to go.
8 more.
Yes, sir.
And regarding this property, there was an appraisal and negotiation with the property owner?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
The city proposes to widen 0.7-mile strip of Burbank Boulevard from Lancashire to McLean. We propose to expand it by 10 feet on both sides of the street and thereby converting it to a major highway standard. And so we have to acquire so many of these permanent street easements. However, in between, there are so many of them that have already dedicated some areas for this street widening, so we didn't touch those things. So we, Bureau of Engineering, recommend that you, the board, authorize the city engineer to request funds from the Department of Transportation Accounting Office to make some of these purchases.
I know that the other properties are not on today's agenda. What's the timing for the acquisition of the other 8 properties?
Bidding will be on, we'll start bidding for the project in December 2017. Originally, it was scheduled for June 2016, but we ran into so many problems. Almost everybody wanted an attorney, and we're going about talking to attorneys and trying to reach a negotiation. So it has prolonged the project bidding.
Questions for Mr. Nyoko? Commissioner Asinto.
Thank you, President James. Okay, thank you. Just wanted to, for the record, understand that the 10 feet, the 1,500 square feet of the property will become highway, will become a street, correct?
That's correct.
So therefore, it'll be in the public right of way. And
that's
correct. That's what the widening is for.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Commissioner Davis, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Which council district?
Council District 2.
2.
Any further questions? Is there a motion? Commissioner Asinto, is there a second? Commissioner Repenning, any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 3. Any problem sending number 3 forthwith? We'll send number 3 forthwith. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Jordan.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 4. Specifications are submitted for board adoption and authorization to advertise for the invitation of bids for the Donald C. Tillman Grit Chamber Flush System in Council District 6. The work order is, or the estimate, $766,200. The bid receipt date is Wednesday, April 6th, 2016. The bid document under project description, there's some confusion between the description of the zip code of the location. Mr. Campos, would you clear up the confusion for the record, please?
Absolutely. President James, Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. The project description indicates that the job walk is located at 6100 North Whitley Avenue in Van Nuys, California, 91408. However, the correct zip code is 91406. It does not change the location or the project description other than the zip code. So just wanted to read that into the record. Again, instead of 91408, it should read 91406.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Spindler, you have a card on number 4.
Now everybody knows on item 3, hold out and get double the value. So fucking stupid, man. So number 4, there has to be some amendments to this item. First of all, it's in CD6, so there needs to be disclosures. 1, in the bid order, it should say, LA City is a criminal enterprise. That's number 1. Disclosure 2, LA City is a pay-to-play city. Number 3, the winning bidder will need lots of campaign cash. Number 4, Nuri Martinez, the city CD6 official, has an FBI investigation and now a grand jury going after her for campaign fraud. And number 5, as the man pointed out, have at least 3 lawyers on call, paid for by the city. That should be in addition to the 766. Because you get into bed with this city, you're in trouble. And these bidders need to know this. Like the nice gentleman we had from Somebody and Sons that did some paperwork wrong, and you're going to fine them $84,000. So people need to know when they get involved in this city contractually, you're in a lot of trouble. Because if anything goes wrong, they are going to fuck you in the city attorney's office with Mike Fuhrer. Like when I was arrested, they denied my claim. They're too fucking stupid to offer me anything. And that's what they're going to do to the winning bidder here. They're going to fuck the winning bidder out of everything he owns unless he knows what to do in case of trouble. You're not going to go to bat for him. I can't show up to all these meetings to go to bat for him. Sometimes I can. So these people need to know, if you want that $766,200, you better know you're getting into bed in CD6 with the criminal chola gangster Nuri Martinez, and you better watch out.
Thank you, Mr. Spindler. Is there a second to my motion that we that we adopt agenda item number 4 forthwith? By Commissioner Davis, any objection? Without objection, agenda item number 4 will be adopted forthwith. Mr. Executive Officer, have we cleared the desk?
Yes, you have.
Then we are adjourned. Thank you.